always hear that self-love is the key to manifestation, but is it really that simple? Can you really have or create the life you desire simply by loving yourself more? When life circumstances have taught you not to truly value yourself, radical self-acceptance and true self-love are not easy tasks. So what does true self-love really even mean? Is showing yourself a little love really the key to manifestation? Well, when you get started on your awakening journey, you hear a lot of people say that you have to know that you are worthy. But let's face it, we are all, if not most of us, dealing with something that makes us feel less than worthy. Whether that's being in an unsatisfactory relationship or career, having money issues and struggling to make ends meet, having issues with children we are trying our best to raise, or just trying to overcome shitty-ass childhoods. Hell, some of us may be experiencing a combination of all of the above. Just about every one of us has something we are working through. Otherwise, we would all be floating on our respective cloud nines, sipping mimosas and living our best lives, right? So how do you increase feelings of self-worth? That starts with examining the relationship you have with yourself. If it's true that what manifests in your life is a culmination of what you feel and believe about yourself, then the best way to change feelings of self-worth is to be brutally honest with yourself about what has manifested in your life and then examining the beliefs that got you there. For example, there may be many reasons for being in an unsatisfactory job. It could be a matter of you not feeling like you're intelligent enough to rise above your current position, so you don't trust yourself with suggesting new ideas or projects that could garner you recognition or promotion. Or maybe you know you're smart enough, but deeply ingrained beliefs about money have you subconsciously sabotaging opportunities because you're afraid of wealth. A lot of us are constantly criticizing ourselves due to perceived failures when we are really self-sabotaging because we're afraid of success or don't believe we are worthy of it. Oftentimes, lack of self-worth and fear of success comes to us in the form of having money issues. That can manifest in you not having enough money or having plenty but never being able to keep any of it. You may have pockets full of money but constantly attract people that are in need or are users. Or you may always have an issue like car trouble or needed home repairs. Some people's beliefs are so deeply ingrained that they manifest sicknesses that keep them from working to begin with, or homelessness. Nobody can expect anything from you, including yourself, if you are too sick or down and out to do anything. For a lot of us, it's very hard to hear that having money issues is a direct reflection of what we believe about ourselves. If you admit that, then you would have to be accountable for the beliefs that got you there to begin with. Unfortunately for many, it's easier to give in to circumstances than to find the strength or the knowledge to rise above them. So many of us are doing our best to raise children in this world, but don't realize that what manifests in your children oftentimes is a direct reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. For example, you might have a rebellious teen who constantly bucks anything you ask them to do. But are you bucking the things that you know you have to do? Spirit nudges us to do things all the time that we repeatedly ignore or refuse to do for ourselves, like eating healthier, going to bed earlier, etc. We've come to think of teenage rebellion as normal, but oftentimes there are underlying issues that cause that rebellion. If you are constantly after your child, it could be an indication of a lack of patience with yourself, which is now manifesting into a lack of patience with your child. It may have taken you longer to achieve your goals than you would have liked, and now you're pushing your child according to your own preconceived timeline of success. You may be overly critical of your child, which oftentimes is an indication of being overly critical with yourself in your own internal dialogue. Having a lack of grace for others means we have a lack of grace for ourselves. How you treat others is a direct reflection of what you believe about and how you treat yourself. So many of us have deeply ingrained beliefs about ourselves that come from having shitty childhoods. We can place blame from now to eternity about who may be at fault for those beliefs, but that still doesn't absolve us of taking accountability for them. If you are brutally honest with yourself, you can usually trace how circumstances in your life were created by those beliefs learned in childhood. For example, being a survivor of any type of abuse as a child almost always plays out in our relationships in adulthood. Lack of love as a child usually plays out as seeking love in everyone you meet, or as the emotionally avoidant who is afraid of and runs from deep connection. Having parents who were never satisfied can manifest as never being satisfied with yourself or with the people in your life, not recognizing or celebrating any accomplishments and always reaching for more to satiate the need to feel good enough. You may come from a really good home with a great family, but out of an abundance of caution, your parents made all of your decisions for you. They never really considered what you truly wanted and gave you the space to choose or speak up for yourself. This can manifest as not knowing how to advocate for yourself in adulthood, and you have a constant need for validation and approval because you inadvertently learned that your voice doesn't matter. These are just a few examples, but if you are truly honest with yourself and what has transpired in your life, you will most definitely be able to trace it back to something you learned to believe along your life journey. So how can you begin to change those beliefs and thereby change what you manifest in your life? You have to start with giving yourself a little love, baby. Start with forgiving yourself. Now, I know it can feel counterintuitive to forgive yourself for childhood trauma endured at the hands of others, but it is most definitely therapeutic. True self-love and radical self-acceptance starts with forgiving yourself for everything you've endured. Forgive yourself for any of your shitty choices or bad life decisions as a result. Forgive yourself for the hurt you may have caused others. Forgive yourself for the hurt you have caused yourself. Even if it's not your fault, forgive yourself for how you've allowed things to impact your life. Do remember that forgiveness takes time. You have to dig deep and use your critical thinking skills. Sometimes you have to sit with painful memories and allow spirit to show you how they've impacted you. Or vice versa, you have to sit and examine your current life circumstances and allow spirit to show you which belief got you there. I'll give you an example from my own life. One day I sat with spirit and tried to remember anything from my childhood that may be impacting my beliefs on finances, and my love for shoes came to mind. I have always had a need to have an abundance of shoes. As a young adult, I spent all my money on shoes. I had to have the newest shoes and shoes that no one else had. I used to just attribute that to poor money management and a love for shoes. However, Spirit reminded me of a long-forgotten memory of when I was about 3 or 4 years old. My grandparents came to visit and had to buy me new shoes because the only shoes I had were visibly too small and hurt my feet. I'm still working through how that memory and any beliefs learned as a result are impacting me today. Once you begin forgiving yourself, that opens up the space for you to begin to show yourself a little more love. Forgiveness allows you to have grace with yourself and not beat yourself up for previous life choices. Forgiveness allows you to realize that if you believed better at the time, you would have done better. Forgiveness opens you up and makes space for healing. Forgiving yourself allows you the head and heart space to acknowledge where you can be more accountable to yourself. If you're always blaming yourself, you don't allow yourself the space to choose or create something different. If you don't forgive yourself, then you are never really open to truly loving yourself. You will always find something about yourself that you deem unworthy of love. True self-love and radical self-acceptance starts with forgiveness, which allows you to embrace your self-worth. And it's when you truly embrace your self-worth that the universe has no choice but to respond. When you start to realize that you are worth more, you open yourself up to more. More loving thoughts, more loving beliefs, more loving actions. Every day that you are a little easier on yourself, you begin to manifest more. You open yourself up to more love and light. You give yourself whatever it is you may need in any given moment. You give yourself the grace you need when you make mistakes. You give yourself rest when you need it. You begin to find peace and joy all around you. You don't allow yourself to be drawn into petty arguments or get angered by someone cutting you off in traffic. Of course, these things take time, but every day you start to find ways where you can show yourself more love. Every day that love will start to multiply in your life and play out in your life circumstances. Once you start showing yourself more love, you start showing others more love, and Spirit responds by giving you more. You can't manifest more in your life until you begin to give yourself a little more love. Now, don't get me wrong. Finding your self-worth doesn't mean it will all be peaches and cream. It's actually quite the opposite. Because when you start to realize your worth, you have no choice but to be accountable to yourself. You have no choice but to make better decisions and put in the work required to give yourself everything you're worthy of. However, It will be easier to put in that work as you continue to embrace how much you deserve it. Every day, you will begin to have the discipline to give yourself the love and life you truly deserve. So if you're on that journey and you ever get weary, I'll leave you with this Will Smith quote that I have on my vision board. Self-discipline equals self-love. Hope that serves as inspiration to give yourself a little more love today. Thanks for tuning in. The Rebellious Gem.